It's a yes bank maximum, the first of this contest. Oh, that is brilliant. It's a hero maximum. On the ground, down the ground, another hero maximum.
Righto, welcome back to the Maximum Cricket Podcast, episode 42. My name is Munter and I'm joined by Lugsy. But unfortunately, no Jacko for now anyways. Jacko has just completed a 3-day game for Canterbury, which is 45 minutes away from his house. So fingers crossed he makes it back for snack draft later on. We are powered by Pyranha Grip Socks, of course. This week we're answering your questions. Who's the right captain for Australia? Who's the greatest BlackCap of all time? Should Tom Blundell be playing ODIs? What's the best test lineup for the BlackCaps? Snack draft is back, plus the Pyranha Proposal. That's a hell of a tongue twister, Squally. But with a twist. But first, Lugsy, how you tracking, mate? What's been happening?
Yeah, no way games for me, unfortunately, mate. So I'll be here. Jacko's obviously got a bit too big time for the boys. Imagine if you crack Canterbury, we'll never see the bloke. But it's good to see him playing some Gurkon. We're good at this end, mate.
Yeah, I guess the perks of being not that good at cricket is we're a bit more available this time of year. So, what would you rather, I guess?
I'll tell you what, I had a talk to a bloke in the hospital, remain nameless just for personal reasons, but he was talking about cricket and how we played for so many years, and he's like, out, man, once you stop playing every Saturday, you really wonder how you did it.
Look, I can't imagine just giving up a whole day, let alone 3 days.
Yeah, he goes, I'm good for a 20-20 every now and then, but I can't believe we gave up every Saturday, 50 overs in the field.
Sometimes you do get that itch to play the odd T20, like just to scratch that itch. But then I would imagine once you get in the dirt for anything longer than like 20 overs, and you remember pretty quickly why you gave it up.
It's one of those things, when you're in it, you don't think about it, you love it. And then when you're out of it, you maybe watch someone score a good 100 and you're like, oh yeah, get me back out there to tonk a few. And then you get out second nut and field for 50 over and you're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Yeah, that's the tough part of the game, unfortunately. We like the game. Obviously, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be talking about the game, but playing's a different story. So there's your endorsement for playing. Right, shall we get cracking on some questions there, Lugsy?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Righto, let's start off with a bit of Aussie India chat. This one is from AK22, which is an interesting username, but nevertheless, he's come up. He's come up with Smith should be captain over Cummins, which, first of all, not a question. It's more of a statement. Well, it is a statement, actually. So I guess we'll address the. It's easy to play the results card. Like just because a team wins doesn't mean that it's because of the captain. And like if you want to say that Smith's tactically a bit better than Cummins in the field, like bowling changes, field settings, I'll give you that. But if people have forgotten why he's not captain in the first place, like he's not a great leader, is he? Like being a captain's a bit more than setting fields and bowling changes and stuff, and got to set a bit of a culture. And I don't remember that culture being too flash around that sandpaper. Okay.
Yeah, I think to me it would be a bit backwards as well. Like there's been too much happen now. There's just too much water under that bridge to now go back. I know it wasn't a great series or for first two games for Cummins in India, but it's not like he's been a terrible leader, has he? It's not like they've done horrifically under him. And I think he has helped a bit with culture and everything. And the other thing is, this is international test cricket. These are grown men. Like it's not like Steve Smith isn't captain, so he can't have a say. He'd still have a huge say whether he's got that C next to his name or not. So I think it's just a lot easier with Cummins in charge. Just a better face, I think, for the Australian game at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, literally a better face. Like we're talking one of the best faces in world cricket. Yeah. That's all I've got really to say. Like I just like Smith does. I don't know why people like him so much as a captain. Like he just sort of irks me a wee bit. Like when he he's sort of like appealing for stumpings, so he gets like an extra DRS, which is not sandpaper. I get it, but it tells me that like winning matters maybe a bit much, and it kind of tells me that he definitely looked the other way with the old sandpaper. It's not a good look, I guess.
I'm sure there's people listening to this in Australia and saying, yeah, that's exactly why we want him. We want someone that's going to be ruthless like that. But as I say, I mean, so much has happened since Sandpaper Gate, and Cummins has done well. I think it would be a bit of a backward step now.
Yeah, what's he actually done wrong? The public do seem a little frosty towards Cummins, which I don't understand.
Well,
what's he done wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's silly, but as soon as I feel like a bit more got revealed into Cummings' personality a bit over the last couple of years with how sort of into the environment and so much of that should be a positive. But I swear half the public would have been like, nah, too soft to be a captain.
Yeah, they want a bit of hard nose, a bit of stuff, and like for me, it's just like people can believe whatever they want, and we're not talking Kyrie Irving stuff out there, but like it's just who he is, and it's not a big deal either way, he, as long as his performances on the park are exemplary. The number one test team in the world. They lost a couple of tests in India. Turns out that's pretty a tough place to play. Yeah,
I think we're all good with Cummings just at the minute.
Right, too easy. Okay, we've actually got an absolute wave of caps questions here. So I'll start off here with a really good one, I thought. Bit of a generation sort of question. This is from David Bolton. When Kane leaves cricket, will he be a greater player than Sir Richard Hadlee? The number one runs getter versus the number one wickets taker. Who do you rank higher? I think before we answer, I just want to list a few stats I've pulled up on Sir Richard, because I think people forget just how good this man was. When he retired in 1990, he held the following records. He had the most test wickets in the world at 431 at 22.29 and 86 tests. He is now ranked 13th. He had the most 5 wickets hauls with 36, with a best of 952. He is now ranked 3rd behind Murali, who has 67, and Shane Warne, who has 37. So he's the first all-time for seamers still. And Jimmy Anderson's played double the amount of tests. He had the most test wicket hauls in a match with 9, with a best of 15 for 1, 2, 3. He is now ranked, that's right, 3rd behind Murali, who has 22, and Warne, who has 10. So Shane Warne, possibly the greatest bowler of all time, only has one more 10-wicket haul than Sir Richard Hadlee. Again, he's number one for seamers. As great as Kane is, and probably will be, I think we just need to pump the brakes on him being better than Richard Hadlee. It's a bit of MJ LeBron for me, but where do you see it?
Well, it's one of those things where I think it's hard to have these combos, to be honest, for me, and have very serious arguments either way, unless you've seen it all. So for me to sit here and say Kane or Richard, I mean, I saw none of Sir Richard play. So it's a real hard one. Obviously, we're going very stats-driven on that. And the best way, I think, when you do, who's the greatest of all time, all that sort of stuff, is how they measure up against their opposition at the time. And that, I mean, as you pointed out there, he ranked at the absolute top in his time. It's just one of those things, as I said, you got 20-year-olds that'll be like, Jordan's the greatest ever, mate. And I'm like, how do you know that? You saw no Jordan. You've seen none of this guy.
Bill Russell.
You just got to always go for I always think, just instead of saying who's the greatest player of all time, who's the player the greatest player you've seen play. So the greatest, obviously, Kiwi, I think we all believe we've seen players as Kane, but I'm sure there's a generation, and the stats will back it up, that Sir Richard's our greatest ever and probably going to stay that way for a long time.
Yeah, you're right. How do they compare against their competitors in their time? And I think there's probably a reasonable case that Richard Hadlee was potentially the best bowler of his era. Like there's a case for like Imran Khan, and there's some obviously the West Indies bowlers and things like that.
Players from highlights you see, and the way that like the generation before us, or even 2 generations, the way they speak about some of these players, like obviously I've never seen that West Indies dream attack play, but like the way they talk about the absolute fear they had in sides it's almost like myth-like.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue like some of those West Indies bowlers cancelled each other out, whereas Hadley bowled so many overs that, helped his stats. And I don't know, like Kane, I guess, he's been in the conversation for like one of the best batters of his generation.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure for me, it's probably Smith. I mean, no, it probably is Smith, and he's probably, like, if we're talking Test cricket, he's probably a little bit ahead of Kohli, and him and Joe Root are pretty close, I think. The one question I wanted to add on to this, because obviously Kane's career is not done yet, because if his career ended today, I think he couldn't do it. But now that he's become the top runs getter in New Zealand, what would he need to do in his career that would put him ahead of Sir Richard?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because as you say with the stats, like the 5-wicket haul, 10-wicket hauls, paddles are done, is obviously like those stats that really get put to the forefront. So it's probably, I mean, it's arbitrary because it's a number, but these numbers do matter, and especially in cricket, like it'd be if he could really build up his hundreds list, something like that. You'd imagine like a big summer where he scores 500-600s, and that number starts to really build. I think that will really stick out to people.
I think at a minimum, you're probably looking at 30 runs, that 10,000 runs club.
10,000.
That seems to be a big market. Like obviously, it's tough because they're not playing a lot of tests, and then I guess you could point at the captaincy. Like looking back, his captaincy is going to look better and better, like further removed.
Yeah.
And if this Test Championship takes off, which it may or may not, like 30 years down the track when there's 3 teams playing and they'll be like, well, Kane Williamson won a World Test Championship. Like that's quite something. So, I don't think it's impossible, but as of now, I can't see it.
We're quite different, I guess, over in New Zealand, like, and compared with, say, America, where we watch a lot of our sports. Like, winning is to them everything. Like, the only thing that matters for a player, like, you'd be like, well, Kane's led us to a Test Championship, 2 ODI finals. Like that would really stack up for them. Whereas like paddles for us absolutely shined and probably not our greatest era. Had some famous victories in that era, but certainly not our greatest era. But that doesn't matter as much to us.
Yeah, I guess back then they also didn't have like trophies. You know what I mean? Like they're just winning tests and one days, and like I said, they won good tests, but they don't. Like you said, it's not like the NBA where they've got I've got 5 rings or 4 rings or whatever. Like it's all really, it is stats based and how good were you as an individual.
It's going to be a great debate. I tell you that. It's a fun drunken debate, especially I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think the important thing now is that
he's in the combo.
In past, it just wouldn't even be discussed. Like the fact that it's even a discussion just shows how good Kane Williamson is.
Well, probably like if you were to say who is our third best, you'd probably the group would probably open up a bit, I'd imagine. So it's pretty clear top 2 now.
Yeah, I think then you're looking at like your Martin Crows, your Ross Taylors.
Yeah.
Righto, should we move on to another question? Talking Tom Blundell, we're talking ODI cricket. This is from Naman Singh. Should Tom Blundell open in one-day internationals? I've been on this for a bit. Just want to say how good Tom Blundell has been in Test cricket since the second Test against Bangladesh in January 2022. These are his scores: 57, 96, 6, 14, 96, 106, 24, 55, 88 not out, 47, 51, 74, 138, 1, 38, 90. That's 981 runs in 16 innings, 200s, 850s, averaging 70. In that time, not a single player in Test cricket has more runs at a higher average that's how special a run he is in. There has to be a place in this one-day side, surely.
And the big thing, I guess, is there's a space at the top, isn't there? This is where this all comes together, I guess, for a lot of people. I think the key, Finn's been given the keys and probably hasn't had his best performances, and we've got a World Cup just around the corner. So if a decision gets made, which I'm not opposed to Blundell getting a shot. I'm not opposed at all. It's just whether we're already in the camp of we're going with Finn now, and we're going to give him that opportunity, and that's sort of set in stone, or because really, if we change it, it's sort of got to be right now, doesn't it? Next couple of series, if we're targeting this World Cup and having our most settled 11 for it. But I'm certainly not anti a shot at it.
Because we've got this tour coming up to Pakistan again, straight after the Sri Lanka series, where the IPL guys won't be there, so they'll be at the IPL. So you'd have, like, if he's not in that squad, something's wrong. Like, you'd have to think he's got to be in that squad somewhere. So I mean, I don't necessarily think he needs to open it as such. Like you said, I think he could do it, and I think if the Finn experience doesn't work, it's nice that we have that option, because in the past when Guptill sort of retired, I thought, wow, we might be stuck with a Nichols or someone out of place. But I think he's on that. I think he's getting on that level of the Conways, the Williamsons, the Lathams, that are just musts in the side. Like they're locks in the side. Whether it doesn't really matter where they bat. Yeah. I think he's that good at the moment.
Yeah, and I think why that's just on the tip of people's tongues is because it's a clear area where there's a space, and I guess we're just hungry for someone to fill it. So that's why his name's coming up.
Where are you on one day cricket? Would you say, what would you rank higher in terms of form if you're picking a one day team? Would it be Test form or T20 form?
This is an interesting debate because the go-to answer is obviously T20, but like the transfer of skills from a T20 to a one-day, I think we're starting to see aren't as easy as people think, and that extra time is actually like, and the way some of these guys are starting to batting and test, it's not. Yeah, that extra time is actually almost similar to like a small test innings rather than a quick T20 innings. So it's. I probably would still go T20, but I'm willing to hear the test debate because I think it's closer than probably your first thing.
The proper answer is probably like you need a balance. Like you need guys that can bat long periods of time and rotate and actually show a little bit of batsmanship, but you still need that X factor, that clear the rope, and the last sort of 15 overs is essentially a 20-20 and. Maybe the first 5 overs or whatever, but the rest of it seems to be like an accumulation for that last launch.
Yeah.
And I think just the fact that Tom Blundell has done it in test level, I think if you add him to the side with Latham, Williamson and Conway, add in Daryl Mitchell, things like guys that can score quickly but also bat properly, and then you add in your Finn Allens, your Glenn Phillipses, your Bracewells, your Santners, you start to have a nice wee sort of squad.
You start to dare to dream already, do we?
Well, can I give you a projected 11 for the World Cup?
Oh, absolutely.
And it kind of, once I saw the team, I started to believe, and it worries me a little bit. So I've got Finn Allen, I've got Devon Conway, I've got Williamson, I've got Latham at 4, Blundell at 5, kind of like a Grant Elliott role, if you know what I mean. Phillips, Bracewell, Santner, Sodhi, Henry, Ferguson, Trent Bolt.
I'll tell you what, it's not a bad side. And there's a bit of experience there mixed with a nice touch of youth at the moment with your Finn Allens, your Bracewells. But then that bowling attack, which does matter at these tournaments, a lot of experience, and a lot of experience through the middle there as well.
Definitely. Got a few good spin options there as well, which is nice. Righto, we'll move on to a bit of Test cricket, I think. I got a lot of these questions. Actually, I got a few questions, and they're sort of grouped together, and they're around sort of like, how does Henry Nicholls keep getting picked, and is Bracewell up to test level, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this is probably the one question I think sums it up best around the batting order, the test batting order that is. Is Young good enough to bat at 4? Can he bat at 1 better than Conway? And then Nicholls gets his regular 5 spot. Otherwise, perhaps Daryl Mitchell could have a go at number 4, meaning Michael Bracewell at 7, which allows 4 full-time bowlers to be included in the 11. I think that's from Matthew Borry as well, by the way. So thank you for your question. But I think it's a real interesting dilemma and question with the batting order and the all-rounder slot moving forward. Because the Will Young case is interesting because, like, for years he's Ross Taylor's apparent at number 4. You know, he's like the best player in domestic cricket.
There's been a few of
but
them.
Yeah. And then, but Ross kind of carried on playing a little longer than, you know, potentially his form would dictated, which is, to be fair, he earned the right to do that. He said he would retire after the 19 World Cup, but obviously that didn't go too well. And after that, like, what Young would have been like a perfect slot after that. But, you know, Ross, I mean, he deserves to play as long as he wants, so fair play to him. And then in that time, Conway became eligible, and then that's sort of like a no-brainer. He comes in, and then Will Young tries to become an opener, and he's not bad. Like, he's still a good player, but I don't think we've seen the best of him. I still think Conway's best position at 4. Like, I just think it's a fact that number 4s on average score more than openers. Like, it's just easier to bat. But then Conway's kind of the best opener, and he was also the best number 4. So where does he actually bat? I don't think we've seen the best out of Will Young. I would like to see him have a go at 4 potentially. The other option is Mitchell at 4, Nicholls at 5. Could go Mitchell at 4, Glenn Phillips at 5. What are your thoughts, Lugsy?
There's a bit there, isn't there? And this series probably is quite an important one, as we sort of talked about before, for finding out a few spots there. It's almost a tough series in terms of there's a lot of guys you'd love to just give this last series to. Like if we could give everyone an option, a shot at those options. Because I think Mitchell at 4 is actually an interesting one. If you're going to ask him to do a bit of bowling as well, it does give him a lot of work to do. But his temperament, sort of when you say him at 4, is immediately, I think he's probably got the temperament for it. It seems like he just loves the challenge of Test cricket and sort of would adjust his game where he needs to. But then, as Jacko pointed out so rightly with Nicholls, changing a guy's position, it's not, even if you think he's up to it, those wee adjustments coming in at a different time in the innings, even if those seem slight from the outside, can be a huge change in someone's game. So like even with Nicholls going to 4s, we've seen his form dip a lot. But I do like the idea of Mitchell at 4. I think you're right. It's Conway's best spot. The combo of him and Williamson being a 3-4 always just feels nice and safe at the moment. But as you say, he's probably a victim of his own success here. I think he's just too good, or has been too successful opening the batting there. He's going to have to do that job for us at the moment. So I think it's really about that 4 position for me. And actually, in saying that, I don't think Bracewell's sort of secure in his spot at all. So there's probably the 4/6, 4 even through 4, 5, 6 is all pretty up for grabs at the moment, I'd say.
I guess the issue with Bracewell at the moment is his batting probably hasn't delivered at test level, and neither has his bowling. He's like a perfect second spinner in the subcontinent, but I think we saw his limitations as a sole spinner. Like batting him at 8 tells him that we don't back you as a frontline batter. And we saw in that second innings against England, his bowling doesn't cut the mustard when required. And to be fair, I don't think it's his fault either. Like, he's learning it on the job, and he's a fantastic white ball cricketer. Like, there's no... He should be in both white ball teams without a shadow of a doubt. Like, he's been incredible. But, like, I think if you look at his first class stats it's kind of the same way around. Like he's very good at white ball cricket and not so good at red ball cricket. So I think that's tough. Like if we do want a spin bowling all rounder, then I would like, Rutch and Ravindra from Wellington to get an extended run. He's got a better first class batting average than Bracewell, and he's only 23 or 24. He's getting better every year. Like you can only assume that when he's 27, like how good's this kid going to be? But like the other thing is just to scrap the all rounder altogether and pick three spinners, three seamers and an actual spinner. So your four best bowlers, and then Mitchell to potentially pick up any overs that you need. But if you had four good overs, like Australia do that, they did that before Cameron Green. Like you should do the job, and then if the right all rounder comes along, then have a look at them.
I think all rounders are always sort of everyone wants a great all rounder, don't they? Because it makes balancing your side a lot easier. So I guess sides are always willing to give a bit of leeway and maybe push a guy just before they're actually ready for it with an all rounder, just to balance the side. But I think, talked about it a bit, like just getting your actual best bats and your actual best bowlers. And I think Mitchell can still do a job as well. But I think it is the best way to go. Like at the moment when we don't have a clear best all-rounder or a clear all-rounder that can actually... Because to be a proper all-rounder, you should be giving good overs with the ball, not just overs to get thrown at, like proper good overs with the ball and be a genuine batting option, not just someone who can do a job at 8.
I think when your all-rounder's a spinner and then you need that spinner, you can't hide anymore. Like you're the only spinner. There's no other spinner. If your secondary options, you're pace bowling, you're not the only pace bowler, if you know what I mean. Like you're the third, fourth option. So if you have an off day, that's okay. Whereas if you have an off day and you're the spinner and they need a spinner, there's no hiding, like as Bracewell said.
Where do you think they'll go with Henry Nicholls? Do you think he'll get picked for this Test 1?
Yeah, I think it looks like it, isn't it? I just can't imagine them rocking the boat too much. It looks like the same squad's been picked. It'll be interesting to see what that lineup comes out. I think by the time this comes out tomorrow, the test lineup will be announced. I hope they don't pick the same team. I think if you're going to pick Bracewell in the team, like pick him as the all-rounder, back his batting. He's got talent. He might do it, and then pick another bowler. It's a tough one because either Will Young or Nicholls would have to miss out in that instance, and Will Young hasn't had a good run, and Nicholls, like if he's not going to get picked in the team, like why is he in the squad sort of thing, he'd be better off playing Plunkett Shield. So I'm not too sure. I think I have this odd feeling that they're going to pick the same 11 that won the last test, which would be a mistake. But I
think as we said, like that win. I mean, it was a great win, one of the absolute great wins. Take nothing. Don't want that win to go away, but it may cover up a few holes. Put a wee plaster on a couple of gaping wounds that's going to come off. Because to answer that guy's question, why does Henry Nicholls get picked? I mean, that's just what we've done the last few years. We've given these guys all the chances in the world. He is his home record's obviously a bit better, than what he's done away from home lately. And he does, he is coming off the back of, back-to-back drunk 50s. And by that I mean a 29 and a 30. Hopefully this series, I think though, as you say, he'll get picked. So I think he'll get first crack at it.
Yeah. Okay, and you sort of touched on the bowling, so as we've got another question around the bowling. Another sort of negative sort of connotation around these questions, which is interesting after famous win. But why are our bowling stocks so low that Tickner and Kugelheim had to play tests? This is from Gary Thomas. Gary sent in a lot of questions, FYI. First of all, I don't know if our bowling stocks are as low as we make out. Like, sure, Tickner and Kugelheim look out of their depth. Tickner potentially has a little bit more talent. Kugelheim didn't have any form going into that test. Like, it was an odd selection. But, I mean, if you lose Bolt, Jameson and de Gronholm as well, That's which is underrated part of his makeup is his bowling. You got three skillful bowlers with that are good with the new ball, and then you bring in two like bang it in bowlers, high 130s. They don't move the ball. They're not that accurate. It looks worse than it potentially is. Like there's guys like Duffy, friend of the show, Doug Bracewell, Shipley, Nathan Smith, friend of the show. And then I'll add like a Logan Van Beek to that list. There are guys that are quite skillful with the new ball, and I just don't think they're getting looked at. I just think the Caps need to do a better job at pairing the right bowlers together. Like as good as Wagner was in that last test, it's clear he is struggling with the new ball for whatever reason, and neither Tickner and Kugelheim can do that job either, so I don't understand why you'd have all three of them in a squad.
Yeah, tell you what, watched Logan Van Beek bowl a few overs at the end, 2-1 Jack Duffy a couple of weeks ago, and there's a bit of heat coming in there too, just quietly, and a lot of short stuff. So I rated the aggression, peppered him a couple of times, which was tasty to see from the sidelines. But yeah, it's a tough one. This can be what can happen when you have a very successful side though for a long time, especially with this bowling stocks, is maybe the next crop don't really get that chance to float in and out of the test side. So it just doesn't develop maybe as well as it could, or there's probably a skill in that as well. Something we probably need to do better is sort of merging these next crop of players in with the current side, so that transition when you lose like your Bolt, Jameson, potentially Southey soon, is a bit more smoother in the future. Another thing is, look, we just don't have a huge amount of players in New Zealand. We've only got six sides to choose from here, so it's not a huge crop of cricketers we're trying to pick from. But I think, as you say, it's not maybe the issue it looks for. I think we think it was more of a selection issue rather than a talent issue. These guys, these next crop are about to get their chance of the way things are going, so it's going to be, once they get, you've got to give them a chance to get in that environment, experience playing test level cricket, sort of, for a few months, a few test series, week in, week out. And hopefully with that, the skill level comes up, because you don't know until you actually get in there and do it how you're going to handle those situations.
You made a good point around like coming out of a golden era and a lot of bowlers not getting a crack, because you could argue an 18-year-old Tim Southey comes on the scene nowadays, he's probably not getting a game, whereas back when Southey made his debut in 2008, I don't have the team list on me, but I can assure you it wasn't great. and it was a lot easier to get a crack, whereas like we are heading outside the golden era, but it's still a pretty good hard side to crack. So like you said, maybe we could have done a better job at blooding them. I'm not too sure, but definitely selection plays its part.
I remember watching Jimmy Anderson when he first came on the scene against Australia, and he was sort of getting demolished by a very good Australian side. Had a nice blonde streak in his hair, but it was like that was his learning curve, and you can only sometimes do that on the job. And I never thought he'd come back from that, this young guy, and be one of the great test bowlers of all time. And that, just because they had probably a slightly weaker side at that time, he gets that crack and sort of learns on the job, and that's sometimes how you have to do it.
Speaking of the era and selection, Gavin Larson heard the drums beating, maybe, I don't know, but he's stepping down at the end of the year. I just want to review his tenure a little bit. I guess we'll start with the pros. He started in 2015, finished in 2023. In that time, the Black Caps made the final of 2 One-Day World Cups, the final of a T20 World Cup, won the first World Test Championship. A lot of that, obviously, is having awesome players like Williamson, Bolt, Southey, blah, blah, blah. But I think, to be fair, he's made, there's been some really good selections along the way. Like the Colin Dugonholm selection, I think, is an all-timer. It's one of those hits on a draft that, it's like a Nikola Jokic second-round pick.
Yeah.
I remember when Colin Dugonholm came onto the scene, they picked him that test team. I was like, what the hell is this? There's no way he plays test cricket. his stats are better than Ben Stokes.
And he is better than Ben Stokes.
And we miss him. We dearly miss him. He's playing first-class cricket like today for ND.
We're speaking, as we mentioned before, like speaking of an all-rounder that would just fit nicely into that side. Big Colin.
I think it was a lot easier to pick that side pre the World Test Championship. The side did pick itself and it didn't change a lot. They had to make little changes around the edges. But I think after the World Test Championship, the selections seemed to get worse and worse. They really struggled on how to handle the franchise cricket debacle, I think. And I felt like the game itself has just started to move past them, like this Trent Bolt stuff and Colin Munro, Colin de Grandhomme, Martin Guptill, all these guys starting to go. And I just don't know they knew how to tiptoe around the situation.
Yeah, I mean, let me first start by saying Gavin Larson was my absolute favourite cricketer growing up. Well, let's show one of a few. One of the first real early ones I loved. Just bowled absolute military mediums. And as a guy that wanted to be a bowler but couldn't bowl quick, that was absolutely heroic for me. So I do love him. I think, yeah, it's really tough, I think, from the outside with this sort of stuff to know. It's always hard to know how much goes into it. It'd be great to talk to a domestic player or someone maybe on the fringe of that size and just see how much conversation goes in, how much they're kept into the loop. Are they looking at them? Like how many games they attend and everything that goes into the behind the scenes? Because it'd be really fascinating. I guess it's one of those things you'd need to speak to guys inside the bubble to know sort of what they think of him.
Yeah, I think a bit of transparency.
Yeah,
I think a little bit of transparency into the process of how they go at picking the sides would probably go a long way. It's easy to criticise. Yeah, it's easy to criticise decisions and selections and all that sort of carry on. And people don't really remember the ones they get right, like the Colin de Grandhommes, but they remember the ones you get wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think if we were to understand the thought process and picking these players, I don't know if it's just this country, I don't know if they get questioned, but it just seems odd when they pick a squad and then they retain the squad after. There's no digging into did you not see Michael Bracewell? He struggled as a lone spinner. You're going to continue to pick him at 8. There's no digging in the surface, and maybe it's just the media here just isn't as big. And if it was rugby, they're just getting grilled. Look at Ian Foster and things like that.
Yeah, 100%.
And rightly or wrong, I think there's a middle ground in there somewhere. But there's a place for just questions, as in why are they doing this? What's the thought process?
Yeah, especially, and I think you're right when you brought up this is a real one of the probably since when ODI cricket came along was one of the big key things in cricket, and this. State of cricket at the moment with the T20 game, this is a real changing time. And I think, as you say, and he's been in the role a while now, there's probably just a time that everything has a sort of expiry date of how long you can do a job like this.
That kind of rolls on to my next question. This is from Timothy Elliott. Again, another... Well, it's a pretty negative connotation, but we'll try and put a spin on it. What role does David White have to play in the downward slide of the Black Caps? Is there enough funding at the high performance level, future tours programs, A tours, coaching and contracts? Yeah, I think sometimes it just comes down to players, and we were just really fortunate that we had a golden generation of players all at once. Williamson, Taylor, Latham, Southey, Bolt, Wagner, Watling, etc., even Conway coming in right at the end. It was just all good timing. I think New Zealand are probably comfortably the 4th best team in the world right now. I haven't done my power ranks for a while, but I think that the top 3 are definitely starting to separate due to franchise cricket, and they have the ability to pay their players a lot more than everyone else, and they also herd all the money. So the reality is we are hanging on by the thread. Are New Zealand cricket and David White perfect? Shit, no. I mean, I think potentially they've been asleep at the wheel a little bit. While we've had good players, they're thinking this is great. We're creaming it. Yeah. but it's not going to last forever. These players are going to retire, and I'm not 100% sure we took the threat of franchise cricket seriously, and I think now we're backpedaling. And
I think there's been a few worrying comments early on about franchise cricket, hasn't there?
yeah, a lot of head in the sand stuff, which does concern me. A lot of stuff just not really addressing why Bolt's not being picked. It's just he's not being picked, and that's concerning. And I think they've also, like, you look at how long it's taken to make the women's game professional, which is another issue. I think it's going to cost the White Ferns for a wee while now. So, like, to answer your question, are they responsible for the downslide? I think that's a bit harsh. I don't think it's their fault. I think it's just a natural progression. But I don't think they've helped this transition either.
Yeah, it's probably very fair. And again, it's something you'd love to spend a week or two behind the scenes with these guys, and just fully get to see how it all works. Because, yeah, as I said, there's been definitely a few worrying comments about the state of cricket and franchise cricket, that they're still probably not realising how the next few years are going to go, which is concerning, because some of these contracts surrounding like international cricketers and franchise cricket are going to really turn up soon. It's only going to happen more as players see it happen more. It's not going to slow down. But yeah, like funding there just isn't a huge amount of funding, is there, in New Zealand cricket? So there's probably only so much that can be done with all the development of the game and A series and things like that. Like, there is a limit to this stuff. I don't know if they're, if they're using everything available to make it the best that they can. I mean, it probably seems like they're not. Like, in any role, it feels like that's to get everything out of it. It doesn't seem like a lot of people do that. So I'm sure there's more that can be done, but it is hard to know just how much more could be done for development and everything.
It's an easy thing to criticise, isn't it? Like, because you can't sort of prove it either way that they're doing a good job. You can only look at results, but I think there's talent. I think we've got talent. I think we just need to do potentially, this next sort of 5 years around franchise cricket, how we handle it. Like, is it too late? Have we, like, it does? I do worry that we don't have a lot of bullets in the chamber left to actually make a play. I think we might be in a bit of trouble. But
I think, like, we talked about it heaps a few weeks ago, that just the domestic T20 league here is something that looks like could easily have some potential to grow with just a few minor tweaks to the schedule. That feels like something that someone could come in and really, really, like, help improve with not a huge amount.
Yeah, definitely. And there's always things that you can improve on. And like I've got this question here from Hamish Peterson. He's asked, like, why does New Zealand cricket not send a development side to play in the Aussie competition? And I like the idea.
Yeah, we'll send a team everywhere if we can. But
yeah, in theory it sounds great. Like, let's send a team over there and they'll get better over there. And then, but then you think about it, why? Like, I don't understand how a development team would compete against their fully professional states. Like,
I don't know why they'd want us over there.
Yeah, what do they get out of it? Because
I think there's some potential for some crossover between Big Bash and our domestic league, even at like a couple of one-off, like, winner plays winner, these sort of fun things that are just, I mean, even if it's just a money generator, for each side, they try and sell it as a big deal. I think there's maybe little things you can do, because obviously we've got the Breakers in their league, the Warriors over in their league. Like, that's potentially where these guys are coming from, that potentially there's a chance to send a team over there.
Yeah, what's actually so good about, like, having a New Zealand side in these comps? Like, I don't understand, like what does the Warriors being in the NRL, how does that help New Zealand Rugby League?
Well, I think it's the only, if it was just playing like our own, I think cricket's a lot more developed than rugby league across New Zealand. So in rugby league, you really need a team. Else there'd be, one Auckland side that would sort of smash everyone. So there'd be no skill, like these guys would just eventually just pull to Aussie teams and would have no, like, New Zealand side.
Yeah, because I'd worry if we had a team or two.
It could just send our league more backwards.
Yeah, I just think what happens to how do we develop players? Like,
Yeah.
what happens to the players that aren't in those sides? Like, what do they do? Do they lose their professionalism? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
does the bottom level become amateur hour, and then they lose their jobs, and then they're, playing A's cricket essentially? I just don't know how it's going to make us better. Like, the one thing I would be interested in, and I think this helps both nations out. Because the question that we haven't asked is, what does Australia actually get out of it? Like, I wouldn't mind Australia A versus New Zealand A little more. Like, if I've painted a picture here, and I'm preaching to the Aussie public here, but we obviously get practice on their wickets and against quality players, and in return, when they come over here, we prepare England surfaces. Because I think our services are probably as close to England as anywhere else in the world. We want to beat Aussie, and they want to beat England. It's win-win. That's how you get to them. I don't know why, and it's just over the bridge. We can prepare some green seamers. They can get, they always go to England. They struggle with the moving ball. Why have they not come over here and played the moving ball?
Well, I'm assuming the biggest issue for it, why A's don't play more is just a money thing, is it? I'd assume it's a funding thing.
Probably to money and time, isn't it? Because it's I guess our issue is our weather, and it's in the middle of summer, which is when they've got their own competitions and things like that. So that's always going to be an issue there.
There's been leagues in the past where the A side just has the exact, each A side would just have the exact same schedule as the top side. So every time they tour, the A tour just goes with it, and they just play at smaller grounds. And I mean, if you got the funding for it, I think that would be exceptional. But it's all obviously player availability, everything. Yeah, there'd be more than just throwing the idea out, but it seems an easy way to just get them on the same loop.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions to go. Oh, no, 3 actually. This is a bit interesting. Why is New Zealand cricket not introducing white balls at junior level, and why do we grow up on artificial wickets instead of grass? That's from Jezza Bell.
Weather?
Yeah, shit weather, money, I think, are probably the 2 obvious answers. White balls are more expensive than the red balls. Preparing a grass wicket costs a lot more to maintain than an artificial.
Red balls are pricey as is. It is dangerously expensive to even get a third-grade cricket ball for a year.
100%. And I think it's pretty bad in Dunedin. We have rounds of senior cricket, and I don't know if we do now, but we obviously used to have senior cricket games on artificial ones. And it's not great, and it's limits your trainings and things like that. But look, it's a money thing, isn't it? It's all sort of a lot of these questions, and there is a bit of a negative slant. I mean, this Kiwi public, Jesus, but a lot of it actually ties together, doesn't it? With the development of the game. I think obviously, I feel like we've got to a point where everyone's getting a bit nervy about the future that's coming for the Cats, because there's a lot about the development of the game here. And I don't, you don't want to be sort of make the same boring points, but as you mentioned, a huge amount of it's just a money issue. I mean, if we could have great, people to prepare great grass wickets for every club team, have white balls for the club sides, I mean, I'm sure everyone would love to do this, but it really is a big money issue and a time issue. You've got to have groundsmen actually want to prepare good grass wickets for club cricket, which probably isn't going to happen everywhere. No, I mean, in the UK, it's clubs actually kind of look after their own grounds. I was going to say that would be a big one, yeah. They prepare it, they prepare themselves. They take pride in it, that sort of stuff. They do rally around it, whereas, and I can't speak for the whole country, but I know here it's obviously, it's Dunedin cricket, it's Otago cricket, it's all that carry on, and it's tough, but we just got to do the best we can, which I think we've done all right so far. I mean, we've got guys actually removing the covers when it's raining to make sure they don't play. So you just got to remember that at some point. Pissing on wickets and whatnot. Righto. Should we move on to our Piranha Proposal?
Yeah.
Different slant on it, but yes, our friends at Pyranha, non-slip grip technology designed to minimise slipping in your shoe to maximise output, designed and tested right here in New Zealand by professional athletes. The choice of sock by several Black Caps and White Ferns, as well as Sophie Eccleston, the number one women's bowler in the world. Performance, quality and style. Speaking of performance, quality and style, we have got the Women's Premier League kicking off this week. Big moment for women's cricket. Couple of performances from your Piranha athletes. New Zealand's best all-rounder of all time, Melly Kerr, with a wee 45 not out of 24, 2 for 12 off 2, and the W for the Mumbai Indians, top franchise. Also, Sophie Eccleston, 2 for 25 off 4, plus 22 not out of 12, to steal a W for the UP Warriors. Bottom line is, you wear Piranha, you dominate, and you win. You don't want those things, you don't wear them. It's simple maths. Grab yourself 20% off your latest pair with the code TMC20. Okay, something slightly different. We didn't get a trade question, but I'm turning the following into a trade discussion. This Pucky boy wants the best white ball 11 in the world by 2025 or 2027. I'm changing it to the most valuable T20 players in 2027. So highest trade value. I've got a list here, and feel free to throw in anyone else. Harry Brook, Shaheen Afridi, Naseem Shah, Cam Green, and Brevis the baby AB. Anyone else on that list, Lugsy?
I feel like there's. I'll try and think about it a bit more as we go, because the two when you gave me the list, like Cam Green stuck out a bit because I can really see the Indian public just getting behind him. All rounder, hits big ball, can bowl quick. I just feel like he'll be one of those guys the Indian public just get a bit infatuated with. Sort of like, like a Yuvraj who just hits some big bombs. And then Harry Brook, obviously, just because at the moment you just don't know where his potential is going to go. But potentially there's guys playing now that are still at the top, that are just still going to be at the top by then.
True, 4 years down the track. So it's a good point. That's a good point. It's a very good point. That's I don't know. I think Cam Green it's always like an all rounder.
Yeah,
they just seem more valuable. Like if you're if you're England and I'm Australia and I go to you and say we'll give you Cam Green for Harry Brook, what do you say?
Yeah, see, it's very tough, isn't it? I mean, especially if we're only talking one format, like if we're talking T20s. Because you feel like when you get a proper round, and this is what we're talking about before, why everyone gets sort of so keen on having one in the side, is you feel like you're getting 2 for 1. You feel like you're filling 2 spaces up for one. So, I don't know. Cam Green's still a lot of potential more than show at this stage as well, to be fair. And he's done some good things, but it's a lot of potential at the moment. Harry Brook, obviously, so early on to the career, but such a rapid start, and looks like his skills will just transfer to everything. So, I mean, it's probably one of those things where both teams just want their guy and wouldn't want to trade. But I think both teams would be interesting in the discussion, wouldn't they?
The Harry Brook thing it's that potential of something we've never seen before that's just hanging over our heads a wee bit. Like he's doing things that just I've never seen before, and it's that lure of like, what's that ceiling? Like if he just becomes one of the best batters in the world, you're probably going to go Cam Green. But if there's a chance that Harry Brook becomes one of the best white ball players we've ever seen, he changes the game. That's something you don't want to miss out on.
Yeah, well, exactly. You don't want to be the guy that doesn't have LeBron or doesn't pick the superstar. Because especially in T20s, like a guy like you met, like how influential like Kohli's been to that Indian side, and they're obviously a great side. But his, especially like one day as white ball cricket, his influence on that side's huge. Like he's won them a lot of games, especially obviously more in the ODI cricket. Like his record chasing's unbelievable. So yeah, when you got a guy like, when you're talking the top elite of the elite, it's like we're in every game if he's still in the middle, and that's a huge thing to have.
Speaking of Coley and whatnot, this is our last question, and probably my favourite question, I reckon. This is from Hamish Vaughan. Who is your dream guest? I mean, I'm just gonna go out and say it. It's Smithy. It has to be Smith.
We did not talk about this at all, and I was thinking like, I'm gonna have to go Smithy because I'd love. I mean, you've got to set it up properly though. It would have to be. It'd have to be in like if even anything goes here. I'm picturing us in a quiet bar somewhere. We've got it live, all set up. We've had a couple of beers and just sat under the learning tree, heard stories from him. I'm just picturing like a day out with Smithy here, not just a pod.
Oh, I mean, like I was thinking about this, and you think about like if you could get like a Virat Kohli on the podcast and how massive that would be for views and clicks, and it puts you on the map. But the reality is you still got to spend time with this person. So if I just feel like the thing about Smithy and we love is he just seems like a great hang. And like I just want to beer with Smithy. I want to talk cricket for an hour. Just press record. And I don't actually care who listens, although I do like and subscribe. But you know what I mean? Like it's just like I want that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've said it many a times, like when we're messaging around when Smithy gets in the comm box and just take a bit of a load off, and it just feels a bit safer here now. We've got Smithy on comms. He'll stick up for the boys in Aussie, and he'll take it to them. We'll just feel a bit more relaxed with Smithy on comms. So, I mean, he's probably not the guy a lot of people would think would pick. I guess I'd just think, who's the biggest name in cricket, but the whole experience, it'd be hard to go past the great man. What about an active player? Who would you go?
I think Tim Southey would be quite interesting. I think someone that's played cricket that long and had that many stories, and I think there's a barrier. Like I think these players, they have like these barriers that they put up, and they're real well media trained. And I think if you could get behind that barrier, he seems like a good yarn, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. He said,
or even a Trent Bolt,
Yeah, Bolt, yeah. It is, because that's sort of, I think that's why, like, the allure of the older generation is still so strong. It's because you've heard them say things like, the new crop of players just wouldn't say, because they're just media trained now. It's all part of the game. So you see interviews with these old fellas, or even you see, what's his name? One of the greats, Aussie commentator.
Junior.
No, although he's another one. The old bugger, the spinner. I don't know why.
Kerry.
The greatest, Kerry, yeah. You hear him even
good.
now say things on comms where you're just like, some wouldn't just get away with what he says, but they're just a generation where you almost just give them a pass. And like, so some of those older fellas have stories. Like we love the Howard games, and like you even heard when Warren was on it. Like their stories are just so different to how anyone would talk now. So if you could get but I'm sure these modern guys have those stories. So if you could get to them, it would be exceptional to get anyone that's been doing it for a while.
Okay, righto. So we'll put a flag in it now. The white whale of Team C is Ian Smith.
And I'll tell you what, if someone could send this to him, give the great man our deets, and we'll try and get it done. I mean, the beers are on us, man.
Chuck it on the company card. Bit of wine. I'm happy days. Snack draft this week. We're going to wing it a little bit. No Jacko, unfortunately, and we didn't want to do soft drinks without him, even though we had in the lost recording that will never see the light of day.
I'll tell you what, we drafted that well, folks.
Yeah, some of Lugsy's best work, unfortunately. But yeah, so me and Lugsy off the cuff, we're going to do snack items on the fast food restaurants. So if you're not sure about if it's a snack or not, we're talking if you bought it, you wouldn't add a combo to it. if that makes sense. So like you wouldn't, like if it was like a cheeseburger, like you're not really going to go to Macca's and get a cheeseburger combo and call it a day. Like you're just not, like not at this table, not at the snack table way. How do you want to start? How do you want to go number one pick? Do you want to just go? It probably won't matter. Should we do 5?
Yeah, we can do 5.
Okay, well you can have the number one pick.
Yeah, and we might have to decide if things are eligible or not. So I just want to get a bit of a clarification on this, because you wouldn't make it we're going to have to talk clarification on that, because like if I'm talking a snack, I might just go on the way home from work, jump into Macca's and just pick it up and go, and not,
Yeah, I reckon like if you only had one of them, that wouldn't fill you up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So like a cheeseburger would be eligible as a snack?
Yeah, like those wee burgers are like perfect. Like you're not going to have that as a meal, are you? Like no, one of them.
You're right. Yeah, so I guess I would, if I'm talking, and are we going to allow dessert options?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's open this right up. So I don't know how controversial this would be, but my favourite, probably going snack option, is I'm going to go like an M&M's McFlurry. I've just ate and I don't need another full meal, but I am out on a walk. I do want something sweet. I'm grabbing a McFlurry.
Quite rare as well to have that machine working.
Yeah, well, that's all part of it, really, isn't it? Honestly, there's got to be an investigation into some of that stuff.
Do you see that? Like Elon Musk, like one of his first things when he bought Twitter, he said someone asked like what do you want to fix? And he's like, and someone's like, can you fix the ice cream machines at McDonald's? And he's like, I can't work miracles, sort of thing.
Great.
Okay, I'm going a real heavy hitter for me. Like I think, yeah, this could be a flag, because if you had enough of them, it would be a meal.
Yeah, I think if you had enough of anything, it's slowly.
That's a good point.
Meal, isn't it?
That's a good point. So I'm going to go Wicked Wings from your KFC.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Miles.
Like it's just a perfect amount of spice for me. Like I'm not a massive spicy person, but I think it gives you that amount of spice where you feel something, but it's not. You're still tasting things afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Wicked Wings, and I think it's important to know, like, they can be sold in sort of a 3 to 5 pack, which, I mean, maybe that's a meal for some, but that's certainly a snack in our eyes. And I'll go, like, your sort of 6-pack chicken nugs.
It's a good pick.
As long as I'm getting a barbecue sauce in there as well, obviously. Pretty tried and true tradition of all Macca's orders, isn't it?
Would they be the best nuggies? Did you say Macca's?
Yeah, I will go to the Macca's.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a bit of debate about this. I don't personally see a huge difference in a few of them. Some people might think that's a disgraceful take, but I would go Macca's as probably my number one. But BK often have them a bit cheaper, so I probably have more BK ones, to be fair.
Yeah, BK's not too bad at all. Okay, I think I'm going to stay at KFC. I think it's served me well so far. I think they do just a great snack range in general. But I'm going to run. I just like the snack burger.
Yeah,
like
I get there soon.
I think it's a simple. Potentially, I could have taken it later. I could look back at that, but I think it's a good, solid burger. It's simple. It's mayo. It's chicken. It's lettuce. It's buns. You're in. You're out. I'm pretty happy with that one.
I'm just going to follow up straight away with a very similar one. I think you've just got to go at some point to cheesy. I think and I mean, maybe I'm being a bit strategic here, because I think it's a lot of people's go-to when they go to Macca's is just a couple of cheesy. I mean, cheesy pleaser, 2 for $5, 2 for $6. Bit of a snack staple. So I'll just lock in the cheeseburger.
Just your basic cheeseburger from Macca's.
Cheeseburger.
It's a real Macca's KFC sort of matchup, this, isn't it?
Got sides here.
I'm going to move over to Mackie D's, and And this, I don't know. And send me, let me know if this isn't allowed. But I'm gonna sort of one up your cheeseburger into. I guess they'd call it like the better version, like depending, but it's not the original, so it might not work. So I'm going the deluxe cheeseburger.
Yeah, I mean,
which I think is a fantastic sort of burger. But I can relate if it's not everyone's cup of tea.
I'm going to try and be very diverse in my range here and just get sort of, one dessert, one burger, maybe a couple of sides. Because there's some seriously fantastic burgers. I tell you what, I might just break my own rule right now and just go one last burger. Because I reckon the barbecue rodeo from BK is just exceptional.
I was thinking about picking that. I was going to pick it for that last pick, and I thought I could catch it later on. That's a miss from me.
Yeah, they're sauced up to the gills, aren't they? They're only a couple of bucks or a few bucks, and I think they're bloody exceptional. So I'll go the rodeo.
It's a good pick. It's a good pick indeed.
What have I only got one left, or?
You've got one left. I've got two. So I'm gonna go to. Are we counting like burgers that are on like sort of special, like that aren't there all the time, or is that?
We're running pretty fast and loose here, mate. So I think we'll allow it.
Okay, I'm gonna go the mini Big Mac. the mini Big Mac.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a fair shout.
It's definitely tiptoeing that line a little bit. It's a little bit like Steve Smith reviewing LBWs by going for a stumping, but it's in the rules.
We're a bit loose with our guidelines because if you say like a snack is something that doesn't fool you, then like we could just go the King Big Mac. I reckon I could nut one of those and be fine, but we'd just be getting carried away and silly with what's going on. As I said, I'll try and add a bit of diversity to my range and get a real bit of a classic snack. Probably something that's become a lot more popular over the last few years. Just a terrific side, and maybe not something everyone would go to on their own, but I'll just grab a packet of onion rings. 3 cases of onion rings to finish me off.
That's not bad at all. Okay, for my last pick, I'm going to head back to the KFC well. I'm going to go popcorn chicken.
Oh, yes. Shit, that's a great option.
Yeah, that's
wings, Big Macs. You might.
So just to review, Lugsy, you're running a M&M McFlurry, chicken nuggies, cheeseburger, barbecue rodeo, and onion rings. Where are the onion rings from?
I'll go the BK onion rings.
BK. And I'm running wicked wings, snack burger, deluxe cheeseburger, a mini Big Mac, and popcorn chicken.
You've picked the fucking world 11 out here. What's going on here? I'm happy with my side, for sure.
They're pretty good. They're pretty good. And these are subjective lists, like people.
Absolutely.
That's the sort of thing. But very happy with that. Very good. Righto, let's wrap that up. That is us for another week. Big thank you to everyone who asked the questions. Apologies if yours didn't make the cut. We always enjoy these, and we will have to do another one very soon. Massive shout out to our patrons who will get early access. Big thanks to Lugsy, but most importantly, thank you to all for listening, rating, and reviewing. It helps us grow. Catch you next week.
The test Gurk tomorrow. Get into it.
Up the caps.
Catch you, mate.